highlighting key points for managing safe water supply in tribal areas. So without much ado, now I introduce Divyan Wadhela, who manages the Tata Water Mission in the Tata Trust, to do the introductory remarks. Over to you, Divyan.
Sure, Mr. Murthy. I think just Mr. Bhatlal sir, I think is joining in a minute. So we may actually just wait for a minute and then we can start it formally.
Sure, thanks for that. Yeah.
Yes, it's trying. So good morning, sir. So thanks for joining, sir. So we are just about to start, sir. So good morning, everyone. On behalf of Tata Trust and NSE Foundation, I would like to welcome you all in today's webinar, which focuses on its discussion on challenges and opportunities to achieve drinking water security in tribal areas of India. As we all know that India has around 1.45 lakh villages, which are categorized as tribal. And we have around 104 million tribal population, which is around 8.6% of the country. Tribal areas are cultural, geographical, institutional, and resource diversity. And more importantly, villages or habitation setup is very different than the conventional rural setup. Villages are divided in smaller habitations. Houses are located in dispersed areas with small landholding and etc. And as we know that one size doesn't fit all, there is a need to have a unique approach to achieve sustainable water management systems in tribal areas more specifically. Although there are many important areas with challenges to be discussed, it is important how we can use existing successful models and learnings to adopt some programs to be implemented at scale. As we are all aware that current environment is very conducive, where on one hand, there is a strong policy support in place, whereas on the other hand, there is a momentum on co-creating solutions with active community participation. Today, we would like to focus on two key areas. One, how technology innovations be useful in addressing water security aspects, specifically in the tribal context. And second, how community mobilization processes with strong institutional mechanism and local governance will strengthen. Today, we have with us sector experts and practitioners who have showcased a great sense of resilience to develop these models. And also, we have policymakers who can help us to articulate the vision into reality of providing safe water to all. I would be very grateful to Shri Pratlal sir for taking time out from his basic schedule and going to share his vision of Jal Jeevan Mission with all of us. I would also like to thank Dr. Chahade, Dr. Mr. Sharma, and other panel members to share their learnings and experiences with us so that we can all collaborate for a common goal to improve quality of lives of underserved communities in tribal areas. So thank you very much, and over to you, Mr. Murthy.
Thank you, Divyan, for this introductory remarks. Pretty much you laid down the challenges of 8.6% of our population, but they're spread across, they're scattered across several habitations, remote areas. So the challenges are much more than what they seem to be as compared to the percentage of the population. So now I introduce or I welcome Reema Mohan, who is the manager for the National Stock Exchange Foundation, to give a background on community managed water programs and share their experiences.
I'll be just sharing my screen. 1 minute. Can you please let me know if the screen is shared?
It's visible.
Yes. So a very warm welcome to everyone today. So on behalf of NSE Foundation, I would like to extend a very, very warm welcome to the audience, as well as all our eminent speakers who have logged in in morning today. I sincerely hope that this would actually be the first of many more such programs, knowledge sharing sessions that we will have. And I really look forward to this extremely erudite panel of speakers that we have, which is really centered around such a fundamental need as water. It is also my pleasure to introduce the National Stock Exchange, which is a premier stock exchange of India. And we are ranked in many of our product categories as #1 across the globe, which is extremely proud achievement for all of us. It is also my pleasure to represent the NSE Foundation, which is the implementing arm of the CSR programs of the NSE Group. So when you look at reaching the unreached, NSE Foundation enables change in a 3C model of convergence, collaboration, and community across 65 NGO partners in 13 states, 6,000 villages, more than 85 plus projects. I think at the keystone of all our work, it is this model of convergence, collaboration, community, along with the various partnerships that we have fostered, that has really helped us to reach the scale and breadth of the programs that we represent across the core focus sectors of primary education and elder care, which are really the two spectrums of a life cycle. We've integrated WASH with more of emphasis now on water, as well as the solid liquid waste management in communities, health and nutrition, which have a direct link to water and sanitation, environment sustainability, also linked to water. And across all this, of course, at the end of the spectrum is the skill development. Cross-cutting, what we have found during the time of COVID is that incubation, incubators, startups, and technology infusion in all these sectors is something that we really need to invest in. And therefore, we have funding of incubators with cross-cuts across these sectors. Our NSE Group WASH interventions, if I take a step back, we started in 2016, very small programs in Maharashtra. And the learnings from these actually served to implement our school program. At school program, we really focused on those schools which were outside the ambit of CSR, which are the ashram shalas and the KGBVs. And we really scale that up across Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and and MP, across all the schools there. Further to that, in 2018, we started the community and institution-based interventions in Karauli, Nandurbar, Ramanathapuram, and Birbhum. And today, we have expanded to Kifri in Nagaland. So what do? We started out with WASH, we started out with school sanitation, but really in terms of the WASH interventions, it is the source strengthening, storage, and supply, which is the retrofitting aspect. So we start with retrofit, we go into the behavioral change, which is again very fundamental because we can build toilets, but we need people to use the toilets. We can have toilets, but if it doesn't have water, then nobody is really going to be able to use the toilets. So we really need behavior change, which is fundamental. And I think for most of our programs, we have almost 70% of the investment that we make in any of these programs is the behavioral change in communities, in schools, because we feel that it's a student who carries this information into the communities. Again, fundamentally, we feel unless it's a sustainable initiative, unless it's a sustainable effort, it's not going to survive. Therefore, the O&M in terms of the community, SMC investments, O&Ms, and other things, really the guidelines that we've laid out, the SOPs that were there. I think these were the fundamental things that we did before we realized that the next step, obviously, is that we need to focus on water. What is it that we did in water? Yes, we did start with community water programs. We started really with RO plants and other things because, that was a fundamental need. But then we realized that water within communities needed to have a forward and a backward linkage. What do I mean by this forward and backward linkage, which is really the entire spectrum of water? It starts at the source, where we're talking of rejuvenation of water sources, recharging, and all that goes into really making water available with the community, getting the community to understand their water availability and how that needs to be shared and how that needs to be preserved and charged. Then came the Swajal program, which we got interested in, and we said that pipe drinking water supply is required in all communities, because really that's also a fundamental need, because every woman who gets up in the morning, if she has water, she will be able to allocate more time to other activities and jobs that she has. So then it goes in the pipe water system of the communities. And then we also move into the community involvement. So the involvement in terms of the technical assistance, the trainings, the masons, the capacity building and everything. And again, this ties down to the collaboration, convergence and community that I spoke of later, which are the cornerstone of our programs. I don't want to bore you with the objectives and the various programs that we're doing.
Rima, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Can you wind up in a minute? Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, just a few more slides, because I've not gone into the details of the programs. I've just gone into some of the learnings that we have of our WASH programs, especially the water programs. What we have found is that we need the creation of water bodies. It needs to be maintained and preserved. Behavioral change through community volunteers, operation maintenance, convergence and alignment with the government. We need technology innovation. We need systematic interlinkage and community engagement and ownership. So in Nandurbar, where we did a community-led piped water scheme, we had an innovation of zinc aluminum tanks. In Ramanathapuram, it was the behavioral change which was fundamental to the program, and many of these are run by women. Again, in Ramanathapuram and Birbhum, we had technology. We have partnered with IIT Madras as well as Inodi, which is a startup, to create the water kiosks in these places which have high salinity and fluorosis. Karauli, again, it is the community engagement and the ownership, and you can see the amount the community has contributed in each one of these programs to maintain it. Ramanathapuram, again, a systematic approach and end-to-end solution which flows into the entire spectrum of source to supply. And we come to the end of that, Mr. Murthy. So it was a brief presentation and it gave glimpses into the programs that we run. And I look forward to an encouraging and engaging session going forward. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Rima, for that wide brush from community engagement to sanitation to O&M to technology interventions. I think these are all essential parts of the wheel that has to move in terms if you want to supply safe water in tribal communities. And we hope we'll hear more from other participants on these points. With this now, I welcome Ganesh Neelam, who is the manager for Tata Trust in the Western region. Ganesh has more than 15 years of experience, or maybe more than that, in tribal management, in rural development, in technologies, multifaceted experiences. He is also a geologist by education. I welcome Ganesh to share your thoughts.
Thank you very much, sir. A warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the Tata Trust. So just to build some context vis-a-vis tribal communities, as I think Divyang also mentioned, the population size of tribal communities in India. But if you look at the concentration of tribal communities, mostly has been in the central India and in the northeast. 2/3 of the overall tribal population actually is in the central Indian tribal belt. And as Tata Trust, we have been working in the central Indian tribal belt, I would say, for the last 15-20 years. The core focus has been to see how we look at water as a trigger for enhancing livelihood as well as the lives of the tribal communities in the central Indian tribal belt. And what we have learned in the last, I would say, 15-20 years of our work with the tribal communities is initially it is difficult to perceive them, to make them understand or engage with them on new activities or new interventions. But that effort for a year or two of engagement with them actually helps us deliver the program on a long-term perspective. You actually can see very strong institutional structures at the ground level of these communities, mainly women, again in this case. And again, if you look at the homogeneity of these communities, again, depending on the different tribes in these geographies, they have been able to actually anchor and manage the program with a long-term horizon, and also looked at sustainability of programs. So yes, there are challenges of making them understand or convincing them vis-a-vis the program. But we have seen once they are able to understand the program, they were able to ensure that the program grows and it moves from a sustainability perspective. And that's what basically at Tata Trust we are trying to see how we can engage with these tribal communities through the institutional structures on ground, and look at how we can meet their aspirations, mainly through women and their institutional structures. Water is again an important enabler for these communities, both on the livelihood perspective as well as on the life perspective. These geographies are good in natural resources. We have seen tribal areas forested. Springs are very high in these geographies. So looking at how we can also preserve or manage springs within the tribal communities, both on the livelihood and basically see how we take things ahead in a systematic manner. I think all of us have a responsibility to work together as partners and see how we can basically ensure that we are empowering the tribal communities on ground, and then basically they anchoring the program at the forefront, and all of us facilitating that process with a long-term perspective. So that's what my request to all of us would be, to see how we can work together as a group, as a team, and basically support these tribal communities on understanding how water is an important enabler for them, and then they start leading that process in the journey that we all of us want to take. So that's broadly what I would like to share as some of the learnings from Tata Trust perspective, and would be happy to learn from the experts in this space. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Murthy.
Thanks a lot, Ganesh, for pointing to the importance of building community institutions. It could take a little bit of time, 1.5 years, as you said, but that's important for sustainability, and the role that the women play in, especially the tribal landlets, very important. Also, thanks to pointing out that water has more value than just drinking purposes. It's life and livelihoods. So I think that's a very good perspective to take on. The job will not end with just supplying water in the homes, but that's a fundamental first step for the healthy living. With this, I now take the opportunity to invite Mr. Bharatlal, who is the Additional Secretary and Mission Director for Jal Jeevan Mission, the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India. No need to introduce a person like Mr. Bharatlal. Everyone knows him, I'm sure. But just a brief background. Bharat was working as the CEO of WASMO. Rather, he was one of the first founders of WASMO, and pushing the importance of reaching out to Gram Panchayats or the communities and building their capacities to manage things in a way no other state did at that point of time. So that has led to a lot of institutional changes and programmatic changes in the way water supply is dealt. I had few chances to interact with him, and I learned a lot from him. Bharat has also held a lot of key positions in Gujarat government and national government, government of India at various levels. And he has taken over as the mission director of Jal Jeevan Mission a couple of years ago. And in a very short span, he has been very instrumental in pushing or achieving the household connection storage, big jump, quantum jump, I would rather say, and giving a rather good focus to it and putting the program on right tracks. It's a challenging program, and we are all happy that it's in good and safe hands of Mr. Bharatlal. With this very brief, I invite Mr. Bharatlal to deliver the keynote address. Bharat, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Divyan. And good morning to everyone. Good morning, Samasa. It was indeed very, very nice to interact with all of you. And I must thank Divyan for arranging this meeting. Well, I think it's a very enlightened group. So So I'll not go into too many nitty gritty, but I think we have to understand few overarching, thought process, and which need to be taken up. My esteemed colleague from Srema Mohan from NSE and other people, they have discussed and they have described. So let's understand that what we are doing at the moment, what we are trying to achieve, and how we want to achieve this thing, and what kind of churning is taking place on the ground. I think these are the three aspects which I would like to deal here with. Well, as far as the history of this Jal Jeevan Mission or its precursors programs are concerned, I think all of you are aware. But try to see it from a different perspective. That I think we all agree here that every household, whether and children, family, whether at home or at workplace, especially in case of children, whether it's a school or Anganwadi or Ashram Shala, wherever they're staying, or let's say PSC, CSC, community center, wellness center, Gram Panchayat offices. I think nobody can deny that there is a huge, urgent need to have a provision of clean tap water. The most important is safe, clean tap water. And when we talk about safe, clean tap water, it can't be intermittent. So it means quantity, quality of that water, regularity, adequate pressure, and long-term basis, on long-term basis. So let's understand that we have moved towards an era where we are talking about service delivery. So the most important part is that we are talking about service delivery. We are not, back-end, we are not trying to find out what is the back-end arrangement. But end of the day, this output is being monitored, it's being measured, and the focus is there. That whether it's a household or a school or Anganwadi center or any community center, we should have a provision of tap water supply and 5 parameters: quantity, quantity. May I request my colleagues to just kindly mute their mic? Yeah, thank you. Quantity, quality, regularity, adequate pressure, and long-term basis. Long-term basis means when we are creating this kind of infrastructure, kindly appreciate that this is for 30, 40 years. So here is the focus. And B, if this kind of service is to be provided, so what is the way forward? One could be highly centralized system where basically government is doing, our government agencies, our government officials are doing everything. Village after village, in 6 lakh, 4,000 villages are 17 lakh habitations. Government officials are like managing. So that is one option. But I think in this nation, our constitution makers, I think they have decided in their own wisdom that water, sanitation, hygiene, this has to be handled by local self-governments. Local self-governments. And Jal Jeevan Mission has gone one step ahead. One step ahead. Realizing and accepting the ground realities. What are the ground realities? That if Gram Panchayat is not homogeneous, because of caste conflict or long distances, any kind of impediments are there for assured service delivery. So provision has been made that the village water, Gram Panchayat can have one subcommittee, which is called Village Water and Sanitation Committee or Pani Samiti, and that can be at village level. B, it has also made, provision has been made that suppose village is also not very homogeneous. So they are free to make their user committee, VWSC or Pani Samiti at habitation level. And C, a special provision has been made for tribal areas. That if habitation is less than 20 household or 100 population, see generally for coverage, 20 household and 100 population, is the criteria. So for tribal area, hilly area, mountainous area, and certain deserts, provision have been made that in those areas, if household number is less than 20 or population is less than 100, even then provision of pipe water supply at public exchequers expenses have to be made. So I think this part we have to see. So A, infrastructure with functionality. B, management, operation, maintenance, local community, local people, local self-government, and for doing this thing, I think we have to see what kind of provisions have been made. So today, actually, I'm confining my comments and remarks on basically on the topic, which I say challenges and opportunities for drinking water security in tribal areas. Or let's say I would like to put it challenges and opportunity to achieve drinking water security in tribal areas. So I think I would be starting from here. Let's understand what we are trying to do. So I would like to say just few things, very, very, very small, few points for your kind consideration. A, mission goal is very clear. B, objective are two. One is functionality of household tap connection, and B, I repeat again and again, that empowerment and capacity building of local institution to operate, maintain, manage this system. That is the key. That goes along with infrastructure, functionality, and this thing. Then to achieve this thing in tribal area, special provision have been made, just like I said, that if there is scattered population, a smaller number of household, even then it need to be covered. Provision have to be made. Second thing has been done, that community contribution, cash, kind, and or labor, whatever way they want, because it has to be owned by people themselves. They must have that pride. They must have check and balances. They can ask questions. So that's why this provision has been made. For tribal people in tribal areas, the community contribution is 5% instead of 10%. So this is a third very special provision has been made. Local community, tribal people will be contributing up to 5%, let's say 5%, in cash, kind, or labor, whatever form they decide. But after completion of the scheme and once they start operation and maintenance of the scheme, 10% of the capital cost, double of their amount, will be returned to them as a revolving fund. Again, I would repeat, all these provisions have been made so that they are able to operate, maintain, manage, and they are able to achieve water security. Let's kindly appreciate, in a very, I would put this way, that if somebody was taking water from river and river was flowing fine, there could be some issues about water quality or bacteriological contamination depending on the sanitation standard. But in wells, they were taking water. Hand pump, yes, they have much more control that if groundwater is available, they are having. So water security has been achieved. But because of falling groundwater table, there have been some issues. Now, when we are going to have tap water supply, please, excellent arrangement, good management, everything to be done. But kindly appreciate that if there is a mismanagement, then their vulnerability also increases. Because there are so many externalities, so many external factors. For example, electricity supply, their capacity to operate, maintain. Suppose it is solar-based system, so their capacity to operate, maintain, and service the battery. So I think n number of external factors are responsible, and right now, not during this period, but I've said today and right now, I think we have to handle those conditions, those challenges. If you don't handle those situations, there could be a situation where basically their water security gets compromised. That's why what we have focused that is smaller scheme, single village scheme, single habitation scheme, and more importantly, though capex might be high, but wherever feasible and possible, A, solar-based, solar-powered system, and B, wherever feasible, possible, gravity-based system. So for tribal area, mountainous area, hills, we have made special provision for a gravity-based system. I think first option is gravity-based system. Capex might go up, but gravity-based system so as life cycle cost is much less. It is much easier to operate and maintain. There will be very little expenditure on operation maintenance because there will be no pumping involved. So two parts, And wherever suppose groundwater based system are from lower, somewhere water has to be collected, we would prefer that solar powered system should be there. With improvement in photovoltaic cell and storage battery, I think this will go day by day, it will become better. All these things are being done to achieve water security. So the tribal community, local community should not become vulnerable. I think kindly appreciate. This is the thought process, and that's why whether it's a VWSC with provision for 50% women member, or what provision for water quality testing and surveillance by kids, or basically skilling, which is most crucial. If in tribal area we don't prepare skilled manpower, human resources, whether let's say pump operator, lay person who is taking care of chlorination, or somebody who is taking care of, let's say, preparing accounts and collecting, some service charges and, repaying the bill and all those things. Or if you don't prepare the plumber, or if you don't prepare those when new infrastructure is coming up, let's say mason, or electrician, or motor mechanic, or fitter. I think all these things, if you don't do, it means we are going to make them vulnerable and water security cannot be achieved. Water security is not limited to only availability of water source, whether it's a groundwater or surface water. Kindly appreciate that in tribal area, challenges are much higher. And at least Jal Jeevan Mission is very clear that their dependency or water supply shouldn't be on government departments or big institutions and this thing. They should be self-dependent. I mean, I'll use the word here. They should be kind of Atmanirbhar. They should be self-dependent. So this approach has to be done. What is your contribution and your significance? Kindly appreciate that Jal Jeevan Mission is a very clear motto says building partnership and changing lives. So it means we have to work together. Various trusts, foundations, NGOs, knowledge institution, we all have to work together. And that's why as you all are aware, and we are very proud of having this partnership with Tata Trusts and various their trusts, that a concept of sector partner has been introduced, where basically all these institutions, they have their own fund, own resources, but there is a commonality of objective. We are trying to converge our resources, converge our activities, converge our approaches, so that this goal can be achieved. So there is one thing is sector partner. If I remember correctly, I think 180 odd sector partners are there with the Jal Jeevan Mission. These are UN agencies, these are trusts, foundations, and this thing. And basically we help each other basically to achieve that goal. And secondarily, it is more on conceptual level when we try to share all these kind of ideas and thoughts. And we all work in for knowledge advocacy and work together. Second concept we have introduced, as you know, Key Resource Center. Roughly 128 or 29 academic, technical, administrative institutions have been identified who are going to impart training to various level of officials from Public Health Department, Water and Sanitation Department, Water Supply Department, A, and B. In that also there are 89 odd institutions which are going to impart, again, training, mindset change, their capacity building of ground level engineer as well as Pani Samiti or Gram Panchayat, Sarpanches or heads. So second thing is that we have made provision for Key Resource Center, and these 129 resource centers have already started work, and we are going to that. We have requested from in the country that all those enlightened people who have good experience, they should get involved and they should work as a resource center and in part help us in bringing that kind of change. Third, as you all know, many areas you need somebody to handhold. For that, provision for implementation support agency, grassroots level NGOs who are working in areas, we have made provision that they can be co-opted, they enter into partnership with respective state department, government, so that they work as implementation support agency, means community mobilization, training, bringing knowledge and, hand holding, bringing transparency, explaining various aspects, nuances of Jal Jeevan Mission, all those kind of things. So A, sector partner, B, key resource center, C, implementation support agency. So this is one. Second on, we have also developing, I think this is a forum I would like to share with you, that knowledge centers. In a big way, we are setting up one at Kolkata, a kind of water and sanitation or public health engineering institute. It will be apex organization just like an IIT. So we are setting up one national institute. We are also proposing that in two places, one in IIT Madras in Chennai and second in IIT Gandhinagar. So in Eastern India, there will be apex institution of water and sanitation, public health engineering, which is basically having tie-up with IIT Kharagpur. So this institute will be there, and one in Southern India and another is in Western India at Gandhinagar and Madras, Chennai. So these are the two centers of excellence we are setting up in water and sanitation and public health engineering. Again, these are long term. And third thing, that we have identified 5 institutions starting from 3 IITs, IIT Guwahati for water related technologies, B, IIT Kanpur. IIT Kanpur is basically data science, data analytics, with a lot of data things is involved. And third is IIT Jodhpur, which is more about source sustainability and this thing. And 2 other institutions. One is TIS Mumbai, basically for decentralization and local self-government and strengthening. And 5th is IIM Bangalore. In fact, IIM Bangalore for public utility development. So the 5 places we are setting up professor chair. Professor chair means 1 professor and along with 6-7 associates. And basically they will be working in these areas. So end of the day, at Kolkata, there is a center which is basically in 5 areas working: education, research, training, advice means consultancy, and 5th is outreach. So at Calcutta Center is working in this thing. Then we have 2 center of excellence, IIT Chennai, basically more in technology, more in sensor, more in IoT, more advanced technologies, and IIT Gandhinagar more about management, sustainable development, and resource as well as supply side. And 5 professors chair in 5 different fields. So this network of institution is basically, idea is that we should be able to bring more knowledge, more updation, more change, more capacity building of our public health engineer. Kindly appreciate that public health engineer today, the reality is that as a public health engineer, I do my engineering primarily in civil engineering, mechanical engineering. I join government department, public health engineering department. Well, training or no training, there are noble exceptions, but training or no training, immediately I become public health engineer. But there is no structured program for public health engineer. What we are doing basically that they learn contract management, they learn project implementation, project management, tendering, arbitration, all those kind of things. And on the job, they learn about service delivery. On the job, they learn service delivery. So A and B, I think in modern time, there are 3-4 more roles are. So civil engineer converted into construction engineer is doing all these things, but he or she has to perform the duty of, let's say, public health engineer. And with changing time, when I say pipe water supply, it means that public health engineer has also to become a utility manager as well as facilitator. So it means this huge change has to take place among our engineers, our departments, and they have to be restructured. They have to, slightly they have to rework out. So these two pillars we are trying to, one is training and B is knowledge and change management. And third part is, since last 2 years we are trying to, because of COVID, there have been certain setbacks. There's no excuse. But skilling in big way. So whether it's a mason, where new work is going to start, there's a plumber in almost every village, electrician almost every village, pump operator every village. It means fitter and motor mechanic in almost alternate or every village.
imagine the kind of potential this sector has for job creation, especially local level jobs, employment opportunities. Huge, huge. You say everybody win, 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 win. I can't see anything negative. But unfortunately, I think buck stops with me. We have not been able to push that skilling takes place in big way. If we prepare real good plumbers, if we really prepare good masons who can construct overhead tank or underground sump who is not going to leak for next 30, 40 years, I think that is the way. That is the way forward. So these things are there and we are trying to work. Friend, I'll not take much time. I will go on two more points. One is how the significant is village action plan. Please understand, at end of the day, if village is going to manage, it means we have to train them, bring skills, improve their understanding, and basically they become water, sanitation, and hygiene enlightened villages. Water, sanitation, and hygiene enlightened villages. And just visualize that in every village, you have 7 to 15 members of Gram Panchayat who have developed understanding because of this training exposure. You have 10 to 15 persons of Pani Samiti or Village Water and Sanitation Committee. 5 women members who are capable of testing quality of water and uploading the data. Surveillance part, surveillance, Asha worker, health worker, Anganwadi worker, school teacher, or anybody. So 5 persons who are capable of testing water, and imagine they are uploading data. And 5 to 10 persons who are skilled human resources. So imagine in any village, if you have 30, 35, 40% who understand the water, sanitation, and hygiene, and tomorrow they just understand only 2 things. Action A, B, C lead to contamination of water. Just this understanding, what kind of change is going to bring. And second, if they start understanding that for drinking and domestic use, for their women, for their daughters, for their wives, if they reduce water consumption by 5-10% in agriculture, 5-10% water consumption in agriculture, I think drinking water security can be achieved like, See this understanding, because as we all know, in drinking and domestic, we use only 5% of water. 85% water goes into irrigation, and less than 10% in industry and other uses. So imagine if we are able to reduce 5, 10, 20% water consumption in agriculture, if farmers develop this understanding, the village people. Drinking water security is achieved actually. In one go, you can achieve. If they appreciate by crop change, or they understand this by micro irrigation, or they understand it that yes, end of the day, like when they produce food grain, they produce in one season or 2 seasons, Rabi or Kharif, whatever, or maybe in summer. But they know it that it has to be stored to be used whole year. They understand. Every farmer, every Indian family understand in rural area that you grow your food grains, store it for 1 year and use it. Now think about water. What is happening in water? Whatever water you get, you get more than 90%, 95% through rainfall, and some from glaciers and those precipitation. End of the day, every season, 10, 15, 20, 30 days, you get this water. Now choice is yours. If you want to use and you want to achieve water security, please store it and use it. You can store overground and you can store underground. Overground means government departments have to play huge role. Existing reservoirs, existing dams, existing ponds, and I think they are desilted, they are repaired, they are rejuvenated. A lot of storage capacity can be increased. And I'm very proud of that, Gujarat government did that, all dams in Saurashtra and Kutch and many dams in basically Maharashtra, desiltation and deepening has taken place and flood water is being transferred there and water security is being achieved. And second part is that aquifer recharge. So that can be done, aquifer recharge. And just imagine for a moment if we are able to educate our and bring this understanding to our farmers, to families, to people in rural area. Just imagine they know that these kind of financial resources are available under Manrega, under Jal Jeevan Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission, let's say 15th Finance Commission grant, District Mineral Development Fund, MLA, MP grant. They can demand MLA, no, I want only this thing. So if they prepare their village action plan and start dovetailing resources, imagine scenario, what will scenario? I think Jal Jeevan Mission is trying to work on this thing. That if we unleash the capacity, the forces at the ground level to achieve water security, I personally feel the day is not far off when we should be in position to do this. So friends, I think I have taken a lot of your time, and I think my time is coming to a close. So thank you very much. In very short, whatever I had to share in very, very small thing. But end of the day, I think to people like you, I will request and I earnestly appeal I appeal that bring this knowledge, this understanding at village level. It means this chain, sector partner have to understand, implementation support agencies have to understand, KRCs have to understand that how we can achieve it. And it's achievable. And see the enabling provision, I think we should be grateful to the Finance Commission and government that 60% of the fund to be given to panchayats, to devolve to panchayats, 60% fund. For 5 years, this is 1,42,000 crore have been tied, earmarked for water and sanitation. Every panchayat is going to get getting basically 8 to 12 lakh rupees annually. So I think the panchayats, our village water and sanitation committee, our Pani Samiti, this is the time. Let's not miss the bus. They can really, truly become, truly, they can become public utility. And public utility means I need not to explain to such enlightened crowd, audience, that it means resource management, source, whether it's water or resource as a fund, water supply, grey water, operation and maintenance. I think if this knowledge, this capacity, this change we are able to bring, I think better is one. So friends, on this note, I think I stop here, and I appeal to all of you that this, if we agree on these collective concepts, that what we are trying to do, take it forward. When you are talking to various men and women who are working in this field, our implementation support agencies, our Pani Samiti member, kindly take these ideas forward. And that is no other way, except that the village people are strengthened, their capacity is strengthened, they are empowered, they start working, and simultaneously government department official, that mindset change must come. If mindset change doesn't take place, please appreciate, will not be able to achieve drinking water security. It is next to impossible that in 6 lakh villages, in every village, that will be the most inefficient system, where one officer in the government is managing water supply, most inefficient and most. So devolution and decentralization is the way forward. Capacity building and training is the way forward. Knowledge, strengthening of knowledge, is a way forward. And partners, there is no other way except to work together. So thank you all very much. Indeed, I'm grateful for being with this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bharatlal. Wow, that in a very brief time you have covered from history to the current program to what are the fundamental issues or key factors that one should take into account, whether it's decentralization, devolution, strengthening, or the service delivery approaches, are linked in with other water uses like agriculture and achieving water security. So I'll not try and summarize. You've covered extensively on most of the topics. And in the course, you also addressed some of the questions that audience were trying to ask. I just wanted to inform you, Mr. Bharatlal, sir, that there are more than 600 people now online and other platforms that have heard you. And I'm sure the message has gone loud and clear. Would you have time for one or two quick questions, sir?
One just a small request. One small request. If you want that everybody comes on video, I'll request some Divyang or somebody to take a photograph and you just take it,
send it, across. I think that will help a lot, that in
That's
popularizing those things. So for 2 minutes, if everybody can come if you can on your video, you can put video on mode. I think let's take 1 or 2 photographs and just tweak it. That will be good.
sure. Yeah. Rima and Divyan, over to you for this technical activity.
Huh?
I'm asking Rima and Divyan.
So we are just doing it, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Kindly go ahead. Yeah, kindly go ahead with your question. Kindly go ahead with your, if you have any clarification.
You can go ahead,
Yeah.
So this one question, sir. While implementing, especially in the tribal communities, what are the special provisions that one has to keep in mind to ensure timeliness and quality, both which are very important that you have raised? Because these are remote habitations, you cannot grow often. So can technology be used, or do you empower more local communities to report back? So what do you think are the key approaches to ensure timeliness and quality while implementing JJM in tribal areas?
Well, in some way I had touched this aspect, but end of the day, I would say that let's appreciate the enabling provision. That even the habitation is smaller, that can be covered under Jal Jeevan Mission. We have to keep in mind that it should be easy to operate, maintain, and manage with minimal recurring expenditure. So repeated pumping or high consumption of electricity, I think all those things need to be avoided. Keeping in view the edapho-climatic condition, if surface water is available and with gravity it is available, even if it's costing more in capex, I think we should go for it. So that is the one part I would say. But more importantly, we have to invest a lot on their capacity building and training. Whether it's improving the understanding of linkages in water, sanitation, hygiene, public health, and their economic livelihood, So this linkage it need to be emphasized so that they get used to that they start drinking water using this thing rather than taking water from some channels and rivulets and all those things. A. And B, they start basically using modern science and technology. Whether it's a fluorination, if it is required, or some treatment is required, or some kind of testing is done. So in my opinion, the biggest thing is that this understanding has to improve. And third, I think women in those areas, if we invest on them, women and girls, and overall, water, sanitation, hygiene seen in public health context, I think this investment, long-term investment, will, I think, bring a lot of change, Yes, there is a need for more intensive hand-holding and continuous engagement. And end of the day, I think we genuinely need good Samaritan in tribal area who are ready to dedicate their few years of their life for that work. I think that is the key requirement. They cannot be left on their own, that they will be able to, So people like us, we have to invest our time, energy in those areas so that they are able to develop a system which is going to last for the next 30, 40 years. And more importantly, drinking water as a source. We all know, as a professional, actually, I started my career in Gujarat, Dan district, highest rainfall area. But in October, November itself, you will find tankers. In fact, as a professional, I used to see that in October, November, highest rainfall area, but in October, November, you will see tankers, plying on the roads. So I think we have, and I could see that the kind of rock formation is there, that hydrogeomorphology is there. So I think a lot of investment in terms of capacity building, knowledge transfer, skilling, that need to be done.
Thank you, sir. I think in the interest of time, we stop here, and thank you very much for taking your time and enlightening us. You touched all the issues, and I'm sure everybody has taken note of that. And again, this is not the last meeting. We hope to have you more on our forums.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy, and thank you all very much. Thank you so much
Thank Professor Pradeep. Thank you, Sama Saab, and we look forward to seeing you sometime, physically. Let's hope that I think India is moving towards that when we'll be able more often physically rather than virtually. So all the best for your next session. And I can see my esteemed colleague, Mr. Sanjay Chahande. He is there. Incidentally, he is doing great job in Maharashtra. I tell you, this mind-boggling work which is going on. Despite COVID, despite such a big size state, and the kind of work it's going on, in fact, almost 30% coverage has improved. And he's working tremendously on equity and inclusiveness. No one is left out. I think one of the model basically state which is the work is doing. And I'm sure you will have the opportunity to listen to Mr. Chahande, the kind of work is being happening. So once again, thank you all very much. Thank you. All the best for following sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. That was great. Good to hear from Mr. Bharat Lal. A range of issues, I'm sure, cuts across all the topics that we are trying to cover today. In the interest of time, let's quickly move to the next session, which is on technologies, innovative technologies for effective water management in tribal areas. I don't think Dr. Sanjay Chahande is able to join today because some engagements came up. So the session will be led by Dr. Mallinath Talshetty, who is also an officer from Maharashtra. He's an IAS officer, just retired from services, but before retiring, he was Commissioner, Groundwater Survey Development Agency, looking at water resource management, especially the groundwaters. Earlier to that, he was District Collector in Nandurbar, and he was also Deputy Secretary, Rural Development, and held various positions. He also has a special interest in sanitation and was very actively promoting the Swachh Bharat mission activities. So honored to have Dr. Mallinath Talshetty lead this session. Other panelists are Mr. Sujit Kumar, Regional Manager from Tata Trust. We have Professor from IIT Chennai. We'll introduce all the panelists. I now invite Dr. Mallinath Talshetty to do the opening remarks on the importance of technologies in ensuring equitable and safe water supply in tribal areas, and also on how do we look at technologies, groundwater and other technologies. So in the interest of time, I would like to brief all the panelists that we have budgeted 6 minutes each, and it's like a tech talk. If you want to use PowerPoints or some photos or to share any thoughts, you're welcome. But otherwise, yeah, please try to be to the point, and 6 minutes time. Thank you, Talshetty, over to you.
Thank you, Murthyji. Thanks to all. I think this is very important virtual discussion today is going on. Thanks to Bharat Lal Sirji, who has elaborated he covered all the parts from capacity building to technology part and commitment and everything. And come to our subject. In Maharashtra, our additional Chief Secretary, Dr. Sanjay Chahande, I think after joining, I am as a earlier Director GSDA, we discussed on JJM, and he was, because I was about 3 years Collector Nandurbar, I also shared my experiences from Nandurbar. Sir, he was also Commissioner, Divisional Commissioner Nashik. He is more aware about the geographical situation, hilly part, and remote area. Honorable ACS sir has formed one committee for looking into this subject, the remote area, tribal villages, under Commissioner GSD chairmanship, Mission Director JJM and CGWB Regional Director and others, some our deputy directors were there on that committee. And we have with my experience, with others' experience, we also had a discussion with field level officers. I had been to the field also. And we have submitted the report, and we also shared all our suggestions to all the field officers also. I think mainly now Bharatlal sir is more clear that if there is a less than 100 population and less than 20 houses, also we think for a scheme. And already in Nandurbar, like I will give an example for Nandurbar, but it is for all, I think, same. There is a Chikaldara and Dharni, or in other state also. Mainly, what we have asked our field officers, mainly topography is very important, rainfall is very important, geology and hydrogeology is also very, very important. We all know that how tribal hamlets are there. There is a distance between two houses. Also, there is a 100 meters, maybe more than that, or there are 3-4 houses together. And with the Sardar Sarovar project, but those submerged villages in that, some those who were there only staying, in that time we started there the solar dual pump for drinking water on the hand pump. And we also tried in Bagdari. This village was adopted by Honorable Governor. In that village, we have covered all habitation with solar dual pump. Because I will give this is the one, solar dual pump works very effectively and in sustainable, but there are some other issues I will share with you. And in some hamlet there are dug wells. We can think for that. If deepening is essential, we have to go for deepening, and because soil strengthening is very important. There is another one, hand pump is there. We can think for solar. And again, in Jal Jeevan Mission, we have to give at household level connection and 55 liter per person. So I think here we have to think for whether that source, from that source, can we achieve it? Because Bharatlal sir said that to achieve the in this water, drinking water. So the third one is there is some other case. Dug well is there and hand pump is there. Multiple sources are also there in some hamlet. We have to think for that also. There are springs in these areas. We can take springs to, there is a one storage tank, and we have done in Ratnagiri and some areas. With in Satara also, in Mahabaleshwar, Javli area. From springs also we can take storage tank. And there are some areas, you see. Now I was PDO in 1991. From 1991, I am working in this Panchayat Raj system, and many schemes after reforms in 2000. We have seen sector reform project, then Jala Swarajya World Bank aided, Swajal Dhara and Bharat Nirman, many schemes. But till I was there in 16 to 19, and I also Yavatmal CO, that is also some parties, tribal and some remote area is there. Till we have not touched many hamlets with schemes. So in such area, we now Nandurbar is tanker-free district. Why? In some areas, some valleys are there, roads are not there, tanker is not going there. In such areas also there, and we have to think for that also. How can we take dead wells there, and this is very important. In some areas, you see, there are some hamlets in tribal. There is a Narmada is passing, but the habitation is on upper side and river is on down side, but water is there. And if with the discussion with their officials, can we take? Because I have prepared one estimate with the Jain irrigation also on solar. How can we take that water? Because we tried dug well, bore well, but we could not succeed. In some villages are also there. We can think for surface water also, because these are different. It is all on the situation, and the main thing here is the challenges. Other challenges are also there apart from technology. This manpower, because I told that we want engineers, we want geologists, and there is a good number of geologists. And because we have also talked on timeline, in the timeline frame we have to achieve all these things. So the manpower is very, very important. And PPP model, thanks to National Stock Exchange, we did one success story in Nandurbar only. There we have, with convergence of different schemes, we have resolved the water supply issues. We have, I think now they are getting 24/7 with the help of NSE, because we used our government grant also, and because we have to pass the pipeline through rail line, because we need more money. Then I think now Tata Trust is also with us, because Tata is in livelihoods areas. Tata Trust is doing excellent work in Nandurbar, and I think Tata Trust, NSE, and other partners can come together, and government JGM, because again I also suggested.
Shettyji, one more minute.
Yes. One more thing, Murthyji, we all are there from 2000, but till we have not covered some hamlets. Now this will also happen. Now in Nandurbar they have made their proposals, very big proposals. But again, what we go for, very easy. First of all, they will then after the time ends, these again hamlets will. I think it is a fair. I think it should not happen, because those hamlets, I think those which we have not covered in last all these schemes, those should be taken on top priority. And in that, my honorable ACS sir also said that we will release, means we will, because again there is a cap norm, this much amount. I think we have to look for that. Partnership is very important. Thank you very much. I think this is very, very important. We have to look for these remote areas, tribal hamlet, and I think for that capacity building and motivation for our staff and community, the VWSC or PADA committee, that is because this is all PESA areas also. This is a scheduled area. There is a PESA for this area, and capacity building is very, very important. And I think we are also to think on this. And Honorable ACS sir also asked me, I'm in Yashoda now. and we are also thinking how to go for more focus on capacity building. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Talshetty. Very, very useful insights from your practical experience. And then different, all tribal areas are not similar. They're differently located, different situations, different water availability scenarios, surface water, groundwater, so on and so forth. So thanks for bringing those highlights. And it's interesting to know that there are 24/7 water supply schemes in tribal habitations in Maharashtra. That's something I'm sure the group would like to know more about it in future. So with this, I now like to confirm whether Dr. Chande sir, have you joined, sir? Dr. Chande sir? Just trying to confirm if you have joined.
I can see him online, Dr. Murthy, but I'm not able to.
No, I also see him online and he's muted. So trying to confirm if he's there or just someone in his office just opened the system.
I think sir is in one more meeting, so he asked me. He also knows I am here, but sir is, I think, whenever he will be free, he will be joined. Otherwise, I think we will complete. I think Rema Mohan can also, I request you how we did in Nandurbar. I am not talking about that 24%, but sustainable ways we have done it with the help of Rema only. I only called her and he agreed. I think that was the great success. I think we hope that on the similar line, I think we will do there, and I will be there with you. Anytime you call me and anywhere I will be there, but I will come and we will do it. And this is very, very essential. Thank you very much. I think Murthy ji, you continue because sir has confirmed me also.
Thanks for that, and also thanks for the offer that you will be with us anywhere, anytime. It's like 24/7 that we are talking, and your experience will be really, really useful, Talshetty. With this now, I move to the next speaker, Mr. Sujit Kumar, who is the Regional Manager for CINI programs in Tata Trust. Sujit has a lot of hands-on experience in rural development and water-related management activities. He's worked extensively in tribal areas and in WASH programs. And he has about 25 years of overall experience. So, Sujit, I invite you next, and I'm happy to see Dr. Pradeep also joined and actively participating. Welcome, sir, Pradeep, sir.
Thank you, Murthy. I'm just sharing my screen.
Sure. 6 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
We are trying to make all these speakers TED speakers in future.
I hope the slide is visible. So a very good morning to the respected panelists and to all the colleagues who are part of today's discussion. So basically, in alignment with today's discussion on challenges and opportunities for drinking water security in the tribal areas, we would like to share in brief some of the experiences of CINI, that is Collectives for Integrated Livelihood Initiatives, the use of renewable energy while implementing the decentralized drinking water supply systems in the tribal pockets of the Central India region. Basically, CINI's major engagement of CINI in the drinking water program has been in the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Jharkhand, where over the last few years we have partnered to implement more than 150 community-based piped drinking water supply systems. And in many of these areas, we have also tried to leverage the use of solar power for the implementation of these drinking water supply systems. The program that we're implementing has tried to look at a holistic approach to the overall issue of drinking water and sanitation at the household level, with a major focus on setting up appropriate systems for the operation and management of these systems. Because here, primarily, the community, especially the women members of the households, have been actively engaged with, and we try to see how their capacities can be built up through intensive handholding support and motivating them to the overall management of the system is being done by the women members themselves. In many of these instances, we have collaborated with the government or with the mainstream programs of the state government. For example, in Gujarat, we have collaborated very closely with WASMO, the state nodal agency for implement drinking water program. So basically, apart from setting up of the quality infrastructure, equal importance is also on various behavioral change in terms of the safe storage and point of use purification, etc. Talking about the challenges in the tribal areas, while there are multiple challenges faced in the tribal clusters while implementing the drinking water schemes, we would like to focus on two of the major issues. Primarily, the dispersed settlements in the tribal clusters, where a village would consist of almost 6 to 8 hamlets, and each of these spread over a 2 to 3 kilometer radius. So this makes it very difficult for us to have a centralized system to cater to the whole village. The other major problem that we face in the tribal clusters are the availability of regular three-phase power connections. And we have also seen delays of over 8 to 12 months in getting the three-phase electricity connection, even after the completion of the infrastructure, like the pipeline and distribution systems. In a few cases, they are still pending. So these two issues are specifically tried to be addressed through the adoption of the solar-powered solutions in the remote tribal clusters, and they have been found to be very appropriate technical solutions and which can be tailor-made to the local conditions in which we are working in. As shared, over the last few years, we have solarized more than 71 drinking water schemes across the program clusters in the tribal areas of Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Jharkhand. So the use of this solar power has basically helped us to overcome some of the basic issues that are faced in almost all the central India tribal region. The major ones being the voltage fluctuation, which is resulting in irregular power supply. So in the rural areas, this is a very common phenomena. Apart from the irregular supply, this often leads to the damage to the electrical pumps and thereby higher expenses in the operation and management of the schemes. So these expenses are sometimes very high for the communities to bear on their own. So the adoption of the solar powered pumps has actually helped to address this issue. The other again is the how do we address the issue of scattered habitations, because in these remote areas, getting the regular three-phase power connections costs are very high. For example, in some of the drinking water schemes, the estimates that we are prepared for the three-phase electricity connection is almost coming to almost 10 lakh rupees, which is much higher than the overall scheme itself. So in such remote clusters where the number of households are also less and we need to reach out to these areas, then the adoption of the solar power has been very helpful. Same is in the case of availing even if it is available, it takes a lot of time to get the connection in place. And in many of the tribal areas, we have seen that it would be a same source which is being used both for agriculture as well as for the drinking water purpose. And in many of these areas, we have seen that availing two power connections in the same single survey number is very difficult. So this also leads to issues in identifying proper sources which can be used for the drinking water. And of course, many of these drinking water schemes are connected to the agriculture grid, which at times during the monsoon season are kept off, and it affects the regular water supply in these areas. So in light of the above issue, the option of solar power solutions has been we have been able to address all the above issues of regularity, the site-specific solutions like the capacity of pumps based on the requirements, ease of operations, as well as the convenience of the families. This is just an example of one of the villages where we have installed the solar-powered pumping solution in Chilakota village, where the community had implemented the regular drinking water scheme, but had to face multiple issues of voltage fluctuation, which led to burning of the motor, and the 27 odd households of that particular hamlet has been spending almost 28 to 30,000 rupees in the repair and the damages to the control panel, which was damaged due to the voltage spikes. And also this had led to extended periods of non-functioning of the scheme. The community also came together and pooled in money to buy a new motor, but the problem persisted. It was then that this whole issue of looking at the possibility of using the solar power solution was discussed, and currently we have installed that unit, and the scheme is running very efficiently. And the community is managing that this decentralized drinking water supply system in the village. Similarly, the other issue is also the availability, the continued availability of solar energy. So in that, we are trying to look at the use of the sun capture system, for example, this is the one of the units that we have set up in Medifalia, where an improved solution of sun capture was introduced on a pilot basis, wherein the solar tracking is done to keep the orientation of the solar panels in the direction of the sun. So then the solar panels are automatically tilted, and in such a way that any given point of time, we have maximum harvest of the sunlight that is available. So this also helps to look at how do we maximize the use of the solar energy that is available for addressing the power requirements at the drinking water system. So even the cost of these is relatively, it is coming down over the years. A 2 HP pump would cost about 1.79 lakh rupees. And as the SP increases, it is the 3 HP. Generally, the drinking water schemes would be around 2 HP or 3 HP pumps. While this sun capture is adaptable only for 5 HP pumps, which costed around 3.32 lakhs. And the cost of putting up that additional sun capture was an 80,000 rupees. But this has helped us to avail 3 to 4 hours of additional power, which could be used for the use of the drinking water supply systems. This is again a snapshot of one of the village level Pani Samitis, totally managed by the women members, and they are actually using the solar power for the for running this drinking water supply system in the Dungrafalia. In recognition of the good work that the women members have been doing, they have also been sort of awarded a 50,000 appreciation by the district administration, and they have been functioning. This unit has been functioning well since the last couple of years. This is again the same how they have been able to supply the drinking water at the doorstep across all the households. So last but not the least, the adoption of the technical solutions of the solar power has basically helped to overcome some of the bottlenecks that are common in most of our tribal clusters. And these systems are very people friendly and can be easily managed by the communities themselves. But then as of now, since the number of installations are still low in any given geography, there are some delays in case of requirement of any technical servicing that might be required for the solar pumps. But here we are trying to work closely with the various service providers and trying to see how we can create local pool of resources who can be deployed to do the basic repair and maintenance issues. So overall, the use of solar energy, especially to cover drinking water systems in very remote locations, has been very, experience of CINI has been very fruitful. This is a very brief sharing of what CINI has been doing in case of use of solar energy for drinking water supply systems. Glad to take any questions that might be there.
Thanks a lot, Sujit, for that focused presentation of the experiences of CINI, especially with the focus on the solar technology and the costing and issues related to its maintenance and availability. We will get back with questions, I'm sure. Thanks for that. May I request you to take off the presentation. With this, I now move over to inviting Dr. Pradeep Tallapil. And extremely honored to invite you, Pradeep sir. Pradeep is an institute professor and Deepak Parekh chair professor at the Department of Chemistry in IIT Madras or Chennai, whatever it is called now. He is a chemist since, but he has made significant contribution to the water sector also. And he has set up the Center for Clean Water at IIT Madras, which is an international center, and has done significant work through that center also. Pradeep sir is also awarded several recognitions, including Padma Shri. Very honored to know that. Other awards are Shanti Swarip Bhatnagar Prize, Nikki Asia Prize, so on and so forth. But when I spoke to him, I found to be a very simple, down-to-earth person. So I take that friendly personality to invite you, Pradeep, to the series and share your experiences on use of clean technologies. I mean, use of appropriate technologies for enabling clean drinking water in tribal areas. Over to you, Dr. Pradeep.
Thank you, Murthy, for this invitation. Let me share my screen, and I have 10 slides, just as the previous speaker. I will, just as in IIT style, if it has to, the lecture has to be over in 50 minutes, it has to be over in 50 minutes. And so I will try to be over 6 or 7 minutes or so. Thank you very much. What I intend to tell you is that I have been a chemist. I create materials like this. And these materials, of course, have gone to field and for applications. And I just want to share a few thoughts in the context of tribal areas. We have about 104 million tribal people. As the previous speaker talked about, there are a number of technologies are needed. I feel, from my experience, there have been a number of situations wherein many of the places that we have worked with in such areas are affected with water quality. It can be largely iron related or arsenic related or fluoride related or manganese related. Some very small set of areas we have come across with uranium and mercury contamination also because of geogenic reasons. How do we address this? So here is a picture that you see in a community which is just about maybe 100 people, 50 people, 20, 25 households. This is the kind of concern that, as Bharatlal talked about. Here is a place in Nadia district in West Bengal. This boy, about 6 to 10 years old, kind of people. Here is a pump. This is about 40 years old. And this pump is the old Mark II pump. Of course, we have the new versions of the World Bank assisted Mark II pumps and several others. Whether it is a cast iron pump or a Mark II pump, this has been supplying water in this particular region in Nadia. If you look at the cement platform, that is red in color. That is because of the iron contamination. Now, in iron in Nadia district tells you that possibly there is arsenic. And in this particular case, there is arsenic concentration of 60 parts per billion, whereas the limit is 10 parts per billion. And iron can be as high as something like 1,000 parts per billion or 1 ppm to about 3 ppm or so. Several other places in India, as the distinguished speakers would know, it can go up to about 4 ppm or so. And it is really turbid. How do you control this, or how do you treat this? This has been a problem, and many technologies fail largely because of, well, the flow rate is not there, etc. Now, here is a situation when we develop such materials like these, we thought that why not we put them in a contraption, not only to remove iron and arsenic, but also remove many other contaminants so that water that quality that comes out is US EPA quality. And at a cost, well, we wanted to get this cost below 5 paisa. That was our objective when we started some 20 years ago. Now, here is a water, that's input water, and it is coming from a depth of about 80 feet to about 100 feet. And this boy is one cast iron pump, one stroke will give you 300 ml of water. And what you get is the 300 ml of high quality water with no additional pressure drop, no additional effort by this boy. It is coming today at a price of, well, not in this particular units, but in a unit which supplies much larger quantities. The cost is about 2.2 paisa per liter. And this particular pump can give you something like 1,000 liters of water. And it runs for over 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years, depending on the water quality that you have. So here is the situation that it has now been implemented across. And it works for 3-4 years, depending upon the kind of water quality, as I told you. You can change the filter. And as Bharatlal was talking about, maintenance is a very important problem when it comes to iron. This requires only a periodic cleaning, and that cleaning is very simple. And it is a back flushing that is required. And depending on the iron concentration, the back flushing, the local person is trained in that. It just removes one filter and then pump it once and then put it back. That's all that is there. And you implement it. All right. So you can now implement it not only in this scale, but also in many other scale. So it is going into communities, something this is in Punjab. So this is a water treatment plant, an existing water treatment plant. In the pipeline, you supply this particular unit. Obviously, this is not of interest to us in this particular tribal discussion, but it can be implemented at any scale. And it can be implemented with sensors and units attached. And with very many sensors that we have developed. These sensors can also go on to these units, incidentally, depending upon now that previous speaker was talking about solar. So it is, if it is power enabled, we can also do water quality analysis. And in this particular short video of 1 minute, I'll show you what is actually going on. So it is possible to do such things. Of course, there are several other technologies, but they require power. In this particular case, water from air, it requires today power, but then we have implemented it in several scales. It may not be really useful in this particular context, but this particular technology may be useful. Here is capacitive deionization. It's a technology which ions are removed, just like reverse osmosis. However, unlike reverse osmosis, the power requirement is substantially less, and the reject is instead of 65% or 50%, the reject is 18%, 16 to 18%. And we can run this on solar, and such treatment plants can actually be run, and you can supply kiosks of this kind, which we are supplying, but it can also be, this is supplying 3,000 liters of water or 4,000 liters of water, but one can also supply something like 200 liters to 300 liters of water, and this can all be done on solar today. And that's all the time that I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Pradeep, for that brief but very pointed technical presentation, I would rather say, sharing your work on different technologies. So we come to the end of the technical session of this panel. Couple of questions that are coming, maybe for the entire group. And when you talk of alternate technologies or innovative technologies, their costs are not determined and they're not approved by governments in a regular stream of things. So how do you enable onboarding of innovative technologies to regular programs? What will be the key challenges, and from your experiences, how can one go about it?
Well, let me take that question and respond in what I feel. World is changing so drastically. And in my view, there is no technology. Technology may be advanced, but people's expectations are climbing up. And whether it is tribal or anywhere else, the best technology is the one that one has to supply. Of course, the best technology has to be affordable, and that is the job of scientists and technologists to do. I think aspirations, whether it is a tribal kid or someone, the tribal kid also has to become tomorrow an Olympian, and his legs and foot and all that to be strong. And I believe in that, and it is our duty to deliver the best of technologies. How do you make it affordable is something that we have to invest in it, and Tata is doing a fantastic job, and several others are doing a fantastic job. Some years ago, we thought that these are all technologies which will stay in the cupboards, in the academic institutions. But today, the mechanisms have been evolved to deliver such things. And there are issues in these mechanisms, and we have to correct them. So I fully, I am of the opinion that the country is today ready. If I think if mobile phones can reach everywhere, why not the most advanced technologies reach? I suppose Vagela will have a similar view. Let me just pass it on. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that energetic, enthusiastic, passionate response, Pradeep. I fully agree on to that. Kalshetty ji, how do you see onboarding technologies, taking them? Does they keep changing every day? If not every day, every year?
It is to be managed by the community. That is very, very important. And I think main focus of GGM is the same one, community. And I thanks to Pradeep ji for very good, nice presentation on these water quality issues, and at decentralized level only we can resolve this. That's very important. Again, and in earlier presentation of Sujit ji, that also solar dual pump in Maharashtra, I think GSD is the pioneer who brought the solar dual pump in the state, and now we are using on the large scale, and community is managing this. That is very important because all these are small hamlets, and in that I think we will concentrate on capacity building of them, and then I think definitely we will achieve the providing the clean drinking water on sustainable basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I think it's been a very what I can say, excellent session with focused experience sharing on different technologies and issues around that. In the interest of time, I'm sure this dialogue will continue in future, and glad to know that IIT Chennai is one of the national key resource centers or knowledge centers that the government of India is trying to promote, and we'll have many more chances to learn from each other. Thank all the panelists for this presentations and experience sharing. We now move forward to the next session, which is on community mobilization. From technologies to community side angle is the shift now. Not how do we mobilize communities? How do you build their capacities? Not only for designing and executing systems, but also for the operations and maintenance. How do you bring everybody on board? So these are the questions even Mr. Bharatlal has raised very eloquently and passionately. So we have an experienced panel to discuss these issues also. I would like to first introduce Mr. R.K. Sama, a veteran in the field. He has wide range of experiences and he's very passionate about the subject. I had a chance to interact with him and learn from him during my stint with the World Bank. We did study the whole WASMO model and how do we decentralize in the community participation. Very good learning from Sama sir on that, and have been in touch with him personally. I'm sure many of the sector professionals have learned quite a lot from Sama sir. He was also one of the leading hands in establishing and stabilizing the WASMO model, which is community, which is a state level institution to build capacities and empower communities at the panchayats at the local level. With this introduction, I invite Sama sir to deliver his opening remarks on the topic of community participation or mobilization and empowerment with a specific focus on tribal areas. Sama sir, over to you. We are not able to hear you, Sama sir.
Arvind, we can't hear you. Arvind, we can't hear Mr. Sama. Can you just check the technical part of it? Can you speak, Sama sir, can you just now speak? I think maybe we can hear you. No, we can't hear you, Abibi. We can't hear you.
It's going to.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Now I am on another. Good afternoon, friends. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I would pick up what Mr. Bharatlal had told. You see, ultimately, over the time, hardwares have become possible. A lot of technologies have been brought in to convey the water and transport water, better material, and that way, engineering part is, I think, is being attended to. But as tribal areas, it's a big challenge. Challenge for community managed water supply system. It's not, I would not say that it is something which is a fashion. It is a complete need. It is understood, and that's why JJM has also adopted and emphasized on that community empowerment and management, O&M of these systems. I would take 5 minutes, and then there are champions of water who are going to share their experience. And that would cover many subjects which are as far as challenges for community managed water supply systems are. I believe always what is not monitored is not done. And second thing, I also believe what is not measured, it cannot be managed. Now, community managed water supply systems in village or in small hamlets is difficult for the reason that it needs a lot of empowerment, capacity building, knowledge transferring, hand holding, and continuous monitoring of and support system available to them. It needs a bigger investment of time and bigger presence of an ISA or any other agencies to handhold this work. I'll not get into what are the challenges for supplying the water and all that, but one thing I am very sure, whatever experience I have now, 30 years experience of not only in drinking water, but managing watersheds also, I am very clear now that we will be able to do tap supply to each household. That's possible, that will be done. But the question again, as far as tribal areas are concerned, is that whether community will be able to sustain, manage, and ultimately what is to be achieved as far as regular, adequate, safe water supply to the people. Yes, difficult, but then there are two things which are happening. There are nodes which have been created by Government of India, and there are some states which have also tried to do something for this purpose. KRC is one of them. Policy, yes, it is in place, but ultimately training and capacity building become very important. And I would say, having told that tap water would certainly reach, what would be done even after tap water has gone to those villages? I think two things have to be done. Source sustainability could be still a suspect. Because it's a common experience that if water is imported from different places, the reservoirs and different lines, because it has passed through rugged, bad hills, streams, this, that, and disruption of pipelines would be a common phenomena. That is one which we are experiencing some of the areas where now the local sources are being replaced by something else. So that is one part. There will be disruptions, there would be disruption in supplies, and it is going to be difficult work. As far as local sources are concerned, there is a seasonal failures in almost every area. It may be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. So dual water supply, alternative water supply, connecting it to the system becomes very, very important. When I was on task force visit to Telangana, to my surprise, I found that they had done wonderful engineering work. But what they did, that they didn't integrate the system with the existing system. They abandoned it. Panchayats were not involved into. And ultimately, I was of the opinion at that time that they have to integrate the local sources to the system. So that is important. I will talk about two things more, and then I will switch over to experts who are going to talk about. Skill training for operations and maintenance is very, very important. And that is what Mr. Bharatwal was telling. And that is what we have, because I work, I am a trustee of BIAF and trustee of Shaw Foundation. And we have tried to work out skill trainings for the people, those who are going to operate and maintain this system in villages, especially in tribal area. And I will tell you, it's working wonders. Instead of having machine operators, electric, then laying out a pipe, fitting, we have sandwich course only for 2 months. Complete sandwich. It is operating, maintenance, taking repairs, breakages, and all that has been included into. And our experience has been, which I will share in material also afterwards. Our experience has been that these people are great, I would say, support system for village scheme to operate, maintain, and take repairs. That is one part. And now, again, another point which has been compromised is, and which is going to be challenged, is tariff. It's very, very important. And tariff management and tariff necessity of tariff, collection of tariff, and then O&M really taken over by the community is important. Fortunately, last 3 years back, what was the position? Today, position has changed as far as finances are concerned. Finances at Gram Panchayat level are available from many sources, including 15th Commission, which happen to be in some of the villages we are working, where Gram Panchayat is able to get about 15 to 20 lakh dedicated only for water. So I would say that as soon as tap water has been connected to, there is a need of that village action plan has to be taken forward to link and see that strengthening of sources have been done, hand-holding for operation and maintenance is done, and alternate source is available. I would close this thing with connecting with very important is that all tribal areas and forest areas, eco deterioration has taken place. Water resources are also drying. So ultimately, it would be very, very important, which Mr. Bharatwal was telling. I would go with an evidences, empirical evidences, but wherever the people have come together to manage the use of water for agriculture and for drinking water, there are ways that they have to be able to save 30 to 40% of consumption water in farming, and that's the key for drinking water security. The evidences are very simple. You have to manage demand management, which means crop change, agriculture practices, micro irrigations. You have to even have resource planning, which is conserve, recharge, and store. And if it is done at a community level in a village, and they are able to, whatever you say, water budgeting or whatever, Mr. Murthy was involved into this project, which we have done for a Taluka Kerala. Ultimately, the most critical thing is management of water as a resource has to be at the village level by the village community, and that needs quite a big empowerment. And if that is done, then water security is obtained. So there are many questions. Many people have done it, and those will show us the way how we go forward to obtain water security in tribal areas, in scattered areas where the hamlets could be so small. So management units are going to change. The dual water supply, alternate water supply has to be created, and strengthening has to be done even after you declare that tap water is available to that village. Thank you. I am expecting now wonderful, nice presentations from the two resource persons, and then we'll have question answer and we'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Sama sir, for that excellent setting the tone kind of knowledge that you have shared, and completely agree with all the issues that you have raised. Without discussing further, I now go ahead and invite Ajit Fadnis, who is the founding director of Primo. Primo is a consultancy organization, but they are more like an NGO also. I have the privilege of knowing Ajit for a long time. He's a civil engineer, but he's also more a social scientist, if you ask me. He has worked extensively in several states in India, more in Maharashtra, but several states and also other countries across the world. His expertise is in program designs, management, design of capacity building modules, training of trainers, and delivering trainings. With this small introduction, I invite Ajit to share his thoughts on community level issues in tribal areas. Ajit, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Murthy. Am I audible?
Yes, pretty much.
Thanks very much for the kind words. I'll straight away go to the presentation. I know we have a limited time. On the onset, I would like just to mention one thing, that in the morning, the presentation or the thoughts which Honorable Mr. Bharatlal shared have been very valuable, and actually it's very reinforcing for the ideas and the projects that we are doing in different places. Today, I'm going to present some of our experiences from Nandurbar. The Nandurbar project was. Can you see the screen, all of you?
Yes, Ajit.
Yeah, thanks.
You can see the screen, but not full screen, though.
Now, is it? Can you see now full screen?
You need to put it on slide mode, I think.
It is on the slide mode.
Okay. Anyway,
please go ahead.
Yeah. So this is about the Nandurbar experience. We had a small project with very interesting and strategic project with National Stock Exchange Foundation. It was conceived in 2018 and started in 2019. The whole idea was to work in collaboration with the district administration, with NSE support, and we as a local partner, Primo as a local partner, to demonstrate the community-led approaches. It was done. The work was done in 20 habitations, and there were two components to it. One is this solar-based mini pipe water supply schemes for 15 habitations, and one was zinc aluminum storage tanks for 5 habitations. Solar, we have heard in the earlier session also, the places where there was a challenge about the power supply, they were remote, difficult areas. So most economical and the solution which has a minimum life cycle cost and very simple to operate and maintain. That was the concept. And second was zinc aluminum tanks, where you have a pumping scheme and you don't have a storage, and there are many such schemes where you need to have an instrument where you quickly kind of develop the storage so that the scheme can be stabilized and you have a better continuity of the water supply schemes. Briefly talking about, so this was not just a kind of implementing in 20 villages, but it was also a demonstration of the community-led processes. We worked in 20 villages. Now all the villages and the institutions have a functional water supply, which is being managed and maintained by community. They have done the advanced water tax collection, some of the issues which have been raised earlier as well. They have done the advanced water tax collections for at least 1 year. All the assets are with the Gram Panchayat. They are registered in the Gram Panchayat. The hardware component was supported by National Stock Exchange Foundation, but community and the village Gram Panchayat also contributed in terms of land, in terms of Shramadan, in terms of Gram Panchayat's own funds, and also the conversions part. So it was actually a partnership amongst various stakeholders to demonstrate this community-led approach and the results from that. Now here I'm not going to present the full project, but the idea is to just kind of share some of the features of the processes that were designed, and these are some of the key features. One is it's like, why we are sharing this. One of the things is there have been a discussion about the technology, and you have to have an appropriate intervention. There have been a discussion about the capacity building and behavior change, etc. But the challenge is on how part. How do you do it? So these are some of the experiences of us which are based on the how part. First is sorry, are the slides changing? Can you see the next slides or?
Slides are not moving, Rajit. We are still on the first slide.
Oh, are you? Okay, let me check. Yeah.
Yeah. We are on the T processes features.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll go through this one only.
Yeah.
So it's like the processes. One is that when you do this kind of processes, you have to have an appropriate blend of community aspirations on one hand, capacity building and appropriate technologies. In the water supply or even SLWM projects, you cannot segregate the two. You can't say that technology will run on one side and the soft services on the other side. So probably you have to have a proper blend where you actually link these three things and design a process and contextualize for your particular geography or particular areas. So that's one of the critical learnings that we have had through this project. The other part is, social transformation process cycles are always long term and they take a lot of time. But we have a very specific programmatic framework where we have to, by 2024, we have to reach out to every household with a functional tap connection. So the project cycle and the process cycle has to match. They have to be synchronized. They have to be together. You can't have the parallel processes of PRA and independently somebody is doing the DPR and designing the stuff. So the integration of two is very critical. So for each phase, like pre-planning, planning, implementation, and O&M, for each phase, what are the soft activities and what are the hardware activities have to be defined, designed, linked to the output, and they have to integrate it together. So the point is, whatever processes you design, maybe capacity building, communications, whatever, so that has to be integrated with the project cycle, then only it will make a sense. Otherwise, if you start capacity building in the last phase and expect that there will be an ownership, it's not going to happen. So the point is, right from the initial days, you have to mix the two and take the processes forward. Now, how do we do that? I mean, it's like, again, the point is there can be a lot of talks, there can be very lengthy discussions and frameworks and all that. But at a village level, at a hamlet level, what works probably is a very simple, short knowledge products with a very clear messages for each phase. One is for the community who is doing it, like village water safety security, village water sanitation committee, or a gram panchayat, or water user groups, etc. And second, there is a facilitating team. Honorable Bharat Lal sir also spoke about this, that you have a framework where you have KRCs, where you have ISAs, and I'm a civil engineer, and I very strongly believe that the engineers, if they start doing it, then that's fantastic. But all of them would need the kind of simple, short knowledge products to take the process further, simplify it, and involve the community and engage them right from the day one. The second part also, Sama sir also just talked about it, about this whole story of O&M. We believe that in this particular project, we started talking about operation and maintenance and water tax from the day one, because the premise was, you have an aspiration to have a piped water. You have been suffering from that, so let's work around that. But then, if the system comes up, who will manage it? So it has to be managed by the users through their different sort of instruments. GP is the ideal, BWSC, Village Water Sanitation Committee, or user group, etc. But the point is, you talk about O&M right from the day one, and one of the principles that was kind of integrated was advanced water tax collection. That that also helps in terms of selecting the option, because ultimately, see, the point is, the whole story is about informed decision by the community and then owning it. So if you start talking about the advanced water tax collections, etc., from the day one, then that's very helpful, not only for the sustainability, but also even for selection of an appropriate option. So that is something which was followed, and which we kind of looked at both technically as well as financially. Women groups training also was not kind of at the end of the day. It was not on the last section or the last part. We started it from the beginning, and it may be for the construction supervision, may it be for O&M, may it be for record keeping. They were involved, engaged right from the beginning, and the institution, Village Water Sanitation Committee, was strengthened. So one is the financial part, second is the technical part, and third is the institutional part. All these parts have to be kind of woven around right from the day one to ensure the sustainability of the systems and the sources. As I said, women in the forefront and operational leadership, which I just kind of spoke about, it was done right from the beginning. And one of the key things probably we felt that, you have to have that lens in your project implementation instrument, may it be NGO, may it be government, may it be corporate, whatever, to identify the leaders, to identify the potential women and men and young guys who have that leadership capacity. So identify them, enable them to take the decisions, help them strengthen their capacities, and also help them monitor the progress, because nothing better than them monitoring the construction to ensure the ownership of the community. So for women in this particular project, women took part in most of the activities as leaders, along with the men and the other people. The last part which I would like to mention is about the multi-stakeholder coordination. There are different stakeholders, and I think this is very crucial for JJM also, because in JJM we are looking at speed, scale, and construction quality, along with the community engagement or community partnership. So 4 things: speed, scale, community engagement, and quality. Putting it together, you need a partnership. You need a very strong operational kind of mechanism and understanding. May it be PHED and ISAs and KRC, may it be in case of the corporate social responsibility, the main agency, their local partners, but along with the government, and converging the resources. If you see in this particular project, around 1 crore of rupees were mobilized through the convergent action. So that's a big thing. These are small habitations, and altogether, if that sort of amount is mobilized, if the government comes to the village, if they are demanding, the communities are demanding, then it's I think a win-win situation. And the partnerships, Mr. Bharat Lal also spoke about it. Almost all the speakers speak about it. But at this point of time, the operationalization of community-led approach would be dependent on the type of partnerships that we would be able to forge at different levels. So these are some of the points. I think I have stuck to my time, and thank you very much. I would be happy to take questions if any.
Thanks a lot, Ajit, for the passionate sharing of your experience with Nandurbar as a case study, but I'm sure you have similar experiences in other parts of the country. We'll come to the questions towards the end of the panel. I now invite Ashutosh. Ashutosh Bhatt is a thematic manager for water and energy at the Gram Vikas. He has a master's in renewable energy, MTech in renewable energy, and a lot of experience in multiple sectors: energy, project management, drinking water, watersheds, spring sheds, etc. And Ram Vikas, the organization that Ashutosh represents, is very well known in the country for working in tribal areas, especially in Orissa and the neighboring states, and looking at a lot of tribal development issues, including the famous model of 24/7 water supply in a number of tribal habitations. So I invite Ashutosh now to share experiences of Ram Vikas in mobilizing communities, their strengthening and capacity building. Over to you, Ashutosh.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, Ashutosh. Yeah.
The screen is also visible, right?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to stick to the time allotted. So quickly, I would like to take you through the innovations that we have put out, especially in the tribal pockets of communities where we have been working in Odisha, in mobilizing them to execute the piped water supply drinking water projects in the fixed timeline or in a very phased out manner. So in that, to give a brief snapshot of where we work, there are 11 districts in Odisha where we have been predominantly working. Most of these are highly tribal dominated areas and also few parts of Jharkhand. And in terms of what we're going to speak about in the coming few slides is brought out from the experiences of 1,200 odd communities with whom we have worked to bring out the functional tap connections. Yeah. So the main principle which the entire focus has been put out from the mantra principle, which has been put in context with the rationale and design to start off the water sanitation activity as an entry point activity per se, where the sustainable social change within the community is brought about with the participation of 100% of all the households, irrespective of caste or whether a person is poor or rich, and bring about a social change within the habitation. So most of our interventions within Gram Vikas have been planned with an habitation as a unit of implementation rather than a revenue village or a panchayat per se. And what is important is that this principle has brought out from the experiences that we have seen from our field activities, where we have seen also seen exclusions within the communities, be it Dalits, Adivasis, or other backward classes in general. So these exclusions were so deep rooted that the ones being excluded felt that or believed that it was their fate, and those who were excluding them also felt as if it was their right to do so. So with this principle, Gram Vikas realized that the Watson intervention could be a per se an entry point activity, wherein it could be also an experiential learning process for the community to understand how inclusion works and how, irrespective of caste, social background, and economic background, how people could come together and work together. So the notion of also that rural people or masses require poor solutions or solutions which fit within the budget was also a very strong notion that we had seen in most of these areas where implementation was also happening. And many of these also were because of a very top-down approach of implementation of various programs in these tribal pockets, where they had also resigned to the fact, and also they had a very low self-esteem in terms of dignity, in terms of understanding how such solutions could be of use for them. So with the mantra principle, what we tried to put out was the all or none approach, where households participated without exception, where be it poor people or socially excluded people, everybody were taken on board. Besides bringing in equity, this approach also helped us to create a unique opportunity for the villagers to come together and work on a shared purpose or a shared objective, wherein the idea of ownership and the idea of inculcation was set out from the very first day itself. Sharing of costs is something which we focused on very strictly, where users contributed to meet one-time costs as well as participated in sharing of various contribution of various local materials, be it sand, stone, or whatever it may be. So from the day one, there was also an idea of them, having a stake in the systems or processes which was being put out. Taking responsibility was one of the other main pillars, where right from planning and implementation, the village water sanitation committees were asked to put in their stake into the planning process and decide as to what are the various components that they would feel would be best possible way to implement them on ground. So generating consensus and mobilizing local resources also ensured equitable participation, because we realized over time, after we worked with a lot of tribal communities, that ensuring women and poor people participating in these programs also helped in better management of the systems on long run. So empowering the marginalized communities per se, even though in a very limited manner, but then we realized over the long run that it also ensured to bring in a lot of equality and stake amongst the VWSCs, the village water sanitation committees, and as well as the habitation as a whole. And lastly, the important pillar of financial sustainability, wherein financial mechanisms to meet the operational needs, be it a kind of a revolving fund or a maintenance fund, the idea of having a small quantities or small amounts of contributions being made on a monthly manner also help them to realize how, no matter how small the amount is, so sustainability is a kind of a term which they had to understand how their small contributions can help them to ensure the functionality of the systems on the long run. With these principles per se, the sanitation component was the entry point activity per se, where every household had a twin pit, flush, toilet, or a bathing room. And once the sanitation component was completed, that's when the piped water supply system came in. So based on the terrain, topography, appropriate water solutions were tapped. So for example, there is no one-size-fits-all approach in which the program was rolled out across these tribal locations, which I feel is very important factor to be accounted for, because many of these locations have different topographies, and especially single village schemes are more appropriate for these regions. And maybe in areas where there is high hilly tribal areas where there's abundance of springs, like the other panelists also had stated out, would be more appropriate to be looked into. So as a whole, the village water sanitation committee takes charge of the entire process and ensures the ownership and management of the entire system. And the corpus fund per se, which is the asset test, we would say, where each household contributes around 1,000 rupees on average per family to state their buy-in into the program at the very beginning. So this forms a kind of a fixed deposit in the bank, and the interest from this income is used by the VWC to provide financial assistance to all families who are added on to the system after the implementation of the scheme. So any or such extended families who join the scheme after the implementation of the project are accounted for with the deposit or the interest which comes out from the corpus fund. So the corpus fund idea itself at the very beginning looks into the sustainability of the system in the long run, as well as accounting for all the families who might join in into the program later on. So based on these factors that I just touched upon, if I had to quickly go through our experiences in these tribal regions, so most of these communities where we work are 100% participation has been included, but also the idea of 100% homogeneity, where there are single caste communities and the communities are more compact per se, where habitations are very clustered together, and the rest of them, compared to the semi-urban areas where they're more scattered, it's very easy to address in terms of having access to water. But then we also realized that even though the communities or the habitations are much compact, but then the localized custom solutions are very much needed, because a single village scheme would be more appropriate than having a multi-village scheme in such areas where topography highs and lows in terms of people settled very close to the lands where they do shifting cultivations of pagodas are much more common. So that's how we address these issues, by focusing on hamlet or habitation-based designs rather than having a clustered approach across revenue villages or across panchayats. Coming to cost sharing, we also realized compared to other local coastal villages where people were more eager to contribute in cash. The tribal villages were more eager to contribute in local materials such as sand and stones, which was equally important in terms of building in their stake into the entire system. So what was important was that even though cash was available locally, but having them deposited into the bank and having them understand the idea of banking systems was more important. So in tribal areas, we have been seeing local materials contribution to be more common. So, but then also we understood that there are other challenges. For example, there were regions where having a borewell or having a dug well made was very difficult because of access to the terrain as well as the region was very difficult. So using appropriate technology such as springs or gravity supply was more appropriate, and that's what we did to reduce the cost as well as the burden on maintenance of the entire system on the community. And all of this was of course possible only because of relying on traditional knowledge within the tribals who were uh, uh, very known well to identify springs and other sources which are perennial in nature. Coming down to responsibility, we also understood that the livelihood patterns are very different compared to coastal communities, and household engagement in various livelihood patterns varies throughout the year. So having a fixed time window to execute a project was very difficult. So window of December to May, that's what we have realized, that within that small window where the tribals are usually much less occupied is the areas or a time where much of the civil infrastructure work had to be done, and later on equal participation from each household could be ensured to do pipeline laying and other works. Compared to social equity, we realized also that there were still issues around tribal communities around having women into the governance processes, especially the involvement of women in VWCs in other areas. So to ensure there is an incremental change which comes across, so the VWCs where we have trying to focus on having women at least 50% participation, like what the framework suggests, and also promoting SHGs and other women groups. Although it's a slow process, but then we have realized that in terms of participation, it is a much more kind of a process wherein women have brought in more change in terms of ensuring sustainability of systems in those villages where VDCs had at least 50% participation of women. In terms of financial inclusion, still there's a lot of dependency on external people for record keeping and bookkeeping, since financial literacy is low. And collection of corpus or maintenance funds is also a big challenge, especially in areas where sources of income generation opportunities are very less and migration is very rampant. So relying on raising funds maybe in other forms, maybe in form of materials such as rice or in form of community contributions per se in a year is what we're trying to focus on. And parallelly, selecting appropriate solutions so that the costs of maintenance are kept low. Solar pumping system might be more appropriate in area where there is high reliance or high issues of grid connectivity, compared to other areas where where a local coastal community where grid access is much more reliable. So selection of appropriate solutions is what we're trying to focus on to make sure that the cost of maintenance is kept low. Few pictures from our implementation locations where you can see a lot of water tank and infrastructures are built, and use of space for community halls below water tanks is what's being focused on. And every infrastructure that's also built has a transparency wall where beneficiaries' contribution in form of labor, local material is also written on the wall to showcase their buy-in as well as their contribution to the entire system, which brings in kind of a pride within the community as to say that they had contributed at least 10 to 15% of the total project cost to establish their own infrastructure. That's it from my end then. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ashutosh. Well-structured sharing of information. The mantra principles are excellent. It's good to see these photos like in other presentations. With this, I now move forward to introduce the last speaker, but as usual, it's not the least important one. Yusuf Kabir from UNICEF. What is interesting is all the three panelists on the social issues side are from engineering fraternity. Yusuf also has a master's in environmental engineering and sustainable development. He's a Commonwealth scholar and has been working in the wash and environmental sanitation field and climate change since 1999. He's leading the UNICEF team, WASH team in Maharashtra since 2007. He's an avid blogger. I think Safaiwala is his blog, keeps writing a lot. And he has also published 4 books and scores of articles in international journals. So he has an academic orientation also. So with this brief introduction, I invite Yusuf, who's a good friend and ever smiling friend, let me say, to the panel and share his thoughts and views and experiences on tribal issues. Yusuf, over to you.
Thank you, Murthy, for such generous introduction. It was so uncomfortable always to hear about your own self. And thanks to Rema and Divyang for inviting UNICEF. And I can see a lot of old colleagues and very eminent scholars, speakers, practitioners. I think it's a very good multidisciplinary team. We have an academic background. We have Mr. Pradeep, who is a very well known in the sector, and also I heard from Gram Vikas, Mr. Sama, and other colleagues. So it's a very good combination when we address the water sector, because water cannot be only seen as a drinking water, as many of the colleagues have mentioned, because it has a nexus with the agriculture irrigation. It's always better to be the last speaker, but since we are going over time, I'll try to finish in just 4 minutes. So I just few thoughts just to share. Incidentally, I also started my career when the sector reform was in 1999. Murthy is remember that time was the Swajal Dhara was introduced. And then after that, we shifted to NRDWP, then Swajal, and then we had also many bank funded program like JS1, Jal Swaraj 1, Jal Swaraj 2, and now we have Jal Jeevan Mission. And unfortunately, 20 years before also, I was discussing the same when I am going to discuss this today. So this is the irony of this sector. And we need to accept it. I think it's the honest time to accept it, that what we called as a sector reform demand-based approach, it was not that successful. I think it is a time to accept it honestly. And Maharashtra was one of the state who took the sector reform most ambitiously. And I believe Murthy was there from the beginning of the sector reform working in Maharashtra, and many other colleagues here. When I see Jal Jeevan Mission, it is a culmination of 3-4 learnings for the programs. We have a lot of learnings from the Swajal Dhara, we have learnings from the Jal Swaraj 1 and other program from the TWAD board, and most importantly from WASMO. And we also have the learning from National Rural Drinking Water Program. And ultimately, we're culminating into Jal Jeevan Mission. And those who are from the NRDWP background, there is not much change in the JJM and NRDWP. In the NRDWP also, we used to call it is that we have to provide household level. Mr. Ashutosh, if you don't mind to mute your mic. Yeah, in the NRDWP time also, it was there that it has to be a Gram Sabha resolution and we have to provide pipe water supply. But the saturation approach was not there, and somehow the water to be seen as an utility was not conceived the way in the Jal Jeevan Mission it was conceived. And since Tata Trust, National Stock Exchange Foundation, and CINI are going to work in Nandurbar, just to give some of the context, and I believe Dr. Kalshetty is still around. He was collected Nandurbar when this entire initiative initiated by National Stock Exchange and Primov. In Maharashtra, whether you know, many of might be knowing, we are the second largest tribal population. This is something very new for Maharashtra, by the way, but many of you might not be knowing or maybe knowing. And we have 59 PESA blocks, Panchayat, and some 6,000 villages and more than 12,000 habitations. And recently, UNICEF, GSDA, now it's not GSD, it's a Groundwater Commission and Water Supply Sanitation Department. We did a study that where the pipe habitations or the hamlets, I think Mr. Ashutosh was nicely presented the Gram Vikas one, because in the tribal areas, census villages, you have to see the para and habitations. So in Maharashtra, more than 10,000 habitations do not have any pipe water supply schemes. They may have sources, but they not have any pipe water supply schemes, and majority of them are from tribal areas, and that too after 75 years of independence. And from Nandurbar, there are such 2,000 paras and hamlets are there. I think this partnership brings very good opportunity for both for National Stock Exchange, Tata Trust, and the local implementing organization and CINI, that if we can focus and get into really those areas where they have not seen any how the water from the pipe looks like. They're taking water from the spring, they're taking water from the wells. Even if water is not reaching out to the household level, if they can see even from the stand post near the house, water is coming from their pipe and it's a portable, it will be a big relation for all of you and also for those villages. Because Swajal also came with the same concept that is not a household but stand post, but still JJM goes much beyond an household level tap water connection. And when you see Nandurbar, except 2 blocks, the 3 blocks are totally scattered hamlets. Even one hamlet of 50 household is scattered into 3 to 4 square kilometer area. So it is going to be challenging, but at the same time, I'll say that it gives a lot of satisfaction working with these communities, and all of you are working. So even if for me, if I can suggest to the group that we should not go for numbers, we should go for quality. And even if we are doing for 100 habitations, 200 or 300 habitations or paras of 50 household, forget the 100 or 200 household, in the 50 households, and we can ensure portable, sustainable water supply, I think it will be a big achievement and a big service to that particular Nandurbar district. Those who are traveled from Nandurbar to Vapi, as if you are coming from India to UK. Like it is something totally a different district in Nandurbar, Vapi, but Vapi is in Gujarat and Nandurbar in Maharashtra. And if you go to the Nandurbar, on the Narmada side of the Nandurbar, there was a movie called God Must Be Crazy. You will find that at the end of the world. So it is something totally different in Nandurbar, those who have been to Nandurbar. So, and even sometime I wonder that how come a Nandurbar and Nandurbar and Mumbai is only 400 kilometers. So it's a huge disparity in such a state like Maharashtra. So I'll just to conclude that this entire program has a strong component of implementing support agency and the third party implementing agency, and I believe this partnership can really work as a good ISA model. And both Tata Trust, CINI, National Stock Exchange brings a lot of knowledge. More than technology, we need a kind of give a belief to the tribals that they are also have the rights for a portable pipe water supply. So that belief, because I have visited many of the district villages in Nandurbar, they often told that after 5 years or 6 years, someone outside from my village has visited these villages. So you can understand how remote those are. So these are, and it has other challenges, but I wish all the best to National Stock Exchange, Tata Trust, and CINI, and other colleagues, and UNICEF is there to support whatever is possible. And thank you, Murthy. Over to you.
Thanks, Yusuf, for that bringing in the historical context. And the more you change, the more you remain the same kind of philosophy, which is not really. It's not really what we want in this context. We really want to change, and what Sama sir and Bharat Lal sir also said is about mindset change. That is very important. So we'll take it forward. There are a couple of questions. One directly to Ashutosh from Gram Vikas. So it says, what are the challenges faced while collecting the water tax, and how did you come about it? How did you succeed? Because collection of Sama sir also raised resetting the tariffs and collecting water taxes is a very important post-implementation function. There are a couple of more questions. After Ashutosh answers this, we'll pick up those two, and then we'll conclude the session. Ashutosh, are you there? Okay. Let me go to the next question. We'll come back when Ashutosh joins. It's more about the whole O&M issue, and then it also revolves, especially in tribal communities. There's a lot of vigor that is required, there's a lot of time that is required, intense engagement. So how can that be scaled up? We have successes in few blocks or few pilot villages with intense effort. So how can that be scaled up? I think maybe Sama sir and Yusuf, you can take it up, or maybe Ajit can also come up.
What was the question?
I think that has to get merged somewhere. When we have committed to the nation that by 2024 or 25 we'll have all house connected, they could go parallelly also. Whatever experience we have gained in Gujarat, we had committed in 2008 to have 80% household connection in Gujarat. And we could do it, say by 2014 or 13. But then, if I look back, we had continued to see that they remain operational, their difficulties are solved, and it becomes sustainable. So what I have told at the beginning, that's very important, that we may achieve the targets for tape connections, because engineering solution could be that you bring outside water, as Mr. Yusuf and Ashutosh were talking of Nandurbar. You see, that other side, Ukai, we have lifted water for 600 villages. And that water supply has been reality now. But to make it sustainable, usable, and that needs again support. So that is one part which I feel. Second part, which we have not been able to touch and told, which is very, very important part of the whole JJ mission, is grey water management. And tribal areas, if you go to all over India, most of the houses have open space, vadas, and there has been tendency right from 2010, when we started giving water from multi-village schemes to these tribal areas. Their first priority was to grow vegetable into their vadas. And they continue to use hand pumps for their drinking water and all that. So ultimately, what is more important is that we have to look at a comprehensive totality of the demands of the people, where they need water. They may need more water. That's why I am telling about integrating local sources and connecting with livelihood. And our case studies are wonderful in Kaprada and Dharampur Taluka. Wherever we have been able to give water to those tribal hamlets, I'll tell you, their livelihood has improved considerably. And they need that water. Because to bring water for few trees or few vegetables, and that also having dispersed all over the places, once you have conveyed the water, that water should get slightly more quantity from other sources also, if it is possible. And the user could be, I don't know, 55, how it has come. But I would say that every tribal family would need, for an optimum use, 120 liters of water. And that's why I emphasize, and that is what we have been able to achieve, to integrate the other local alternative sources for the drinking water, so that it reaches to their houses, where it is not only for drinking water, it is for their cleaning, their animal husbandry, their small vegetable growing, nutrition, and all that is all connected. And that is one important. So I will close that question. I'll not go to that. But most difficult is partnerships and adequate support to these people. And my experience has been, where the organizations are present, where the ISA or any NGOs are doing any other work, they can very easily link with JJM to support the community. It may be for livelihood, it may be for skill trainings, it could be anything, but all these are part of JJM. I think that is a very difficult part. Many of the state partnerships development is difficult. It was difficult in many states, even here. But then that's the way out to sustain the water supply for each tribal house. I think it will take another 3-4 years if sustained efforts are made to support them and hand over them. Thank you.
Thank you, Samu sir. That's very, very useful insights. One last question to you, Yusuf, and be direct and brief as usual. Is what does based on your experience in the past 2 decades, that where things are not changing very fast or very much, what are the 1 or 2 things that you see would like to see integrated and linked to policy framework? What do you think is the key areas that need to be integrated and linked?
Yeah, I'll answer that question in 30 seconds, Murthy. Before coming to that, where Sama sir has just ended, I just want to add certain things on the O&M fund. There's a lot of tribal areas. There's a lot of Tendu royalty, and the our funds are there also. Also, mining funds are there. It is very much at the behest of the district planning development committees. So, and often we believe, it is my personal observation, that when we see the poor, we always believe for the community contribution. We don't think for the community contribution for the richest, where people are living in Mumbai, Pune, or Delhi, or Kolkata. So even the Tendu royalty fund, or also the mineral fund, can also be used for the O&M fund. And there's a huge amount of money allocated under the tribal sub-plan. And every year money is not being spent, and it is a criminal offense not to spend the money kept for the tribal sub-plan. So those monies are also there to spend for the O&M funding. And now coming back to the questions for what you have raised, some audience have asked that thing. I believe, and I again kicking back to what Mr. Sama sir has mentioned, that maybe it has time to see that why our electricity grid, the electric grid was successful in the early 90s. Why can't it do for the water? I'm not saying go for the water grid in the tribal areas, but if we see water as an asset and also as an individual and community property, why can't we bring water, livelihood, and entire housing part together? Why to take the water tax separately? Why can't we integrate with the housing part? So, since we have this Prime Minister Awas Yojana, and we have a lot of investment under the skill building, lot of organization are in the skilling. So water should not be seen, always should not be seen as an isolation. It is a very important thing, no doubt about that. But if you can integrate these essential services in terms of assets, whether the water and sanitation, similarly for the house and livelihood, I believe in the policy making, we are going to see some kind of a significant changes in the long run. And then the utility of the 15th finance, where Honorable Bharatlal sir told that 1,42 lakhs rupees, 142 crores, some huge money. I could know. Lakh crores. Yeah, there are so many zeros I can't calculate. So much of devolution of fund has gone for 8 to 10 lakhs. And also for Maharashtra, I think Rema is aware, for the tribal development department, they are also giving 40% untied fund under PISA. But unfortunately, all these funds only go to the main Gram Panchayat. It doesn't go to the hamlets and the paras. So there is no dearth of fund, I must tell you. I think it's overfunded. Too much of money is also not good for the program, if I may use the word. So we need to integrate certain flagship scheme together. And it has been under discussion with Government of India for a long time, integrating flagship schemes. And that was one of the reasons for the aspiration districts programming. So since we are working in the aspiration districts, it will be a good opportunity to integrate these flagship programs, which are dealing with not only with the essential services, but which has a cascading impact on the livelihood. It's a very pertinent question, difficult to answer in 1 minute, but over to you, Murthy.
Thanks, Yusuf and Sama sir, for these insights. I think this opens up avenues for the next rounds of brainstorming and discussions. What do you mean by integration? How can you do it? It's not only streams, but how do you integrate institutions, so on and so forth. It's a cue to both Tata Trust and NSE to continue this dialogue. Very highly motivating, highly experience-based, highly engaging. So we still have 700 people hooked onto the platform. So, but As everything, all good things, this also is coming to an end. It's also lunchtime. We have overshot by 20-30 minutes, but I'm sure it's all good. Everybody enjoyed the discussions and the dialogue and the experience sharing. So now I hand over to Mr. Vasudev Rao, who is the Group General Counsel and CSR for the National Stock Exchange. Mr. Rao, over to you for vote of thanks and the closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I would only say very limited words. It was really a pleasure to hear the valuable thoughts being echoed by the esteemed speakers. I thank all of them for taking the time from the busy schedules and for the launch of the integrated multi-stakeholder partnership project to fulfill the objective of Jal Jeevan mission in the Nandurbar district. We thank Shri Bharatlal, Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Jal Jeevan Mission, for launching the programs. We also express our gratitude to Dr. Chande, Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Maharashtra, for extending his support for the project at Nandurbar. Our gratitude to various institutional relationships of NSE Foundation that made really this event possible, and also to our esteemed speakers of this event, today's event, who have taken their time from the busy schedules and placed important key takeaways that would be implemented not only for the project for NSE Foundation, but also on a larger scale of the Jal Jeevan mission. I'd like to place on record that the success of any good program, event, or a webinar would also depend on how best it is managed, moderated in a timely fashion. In this regard, we would be forgetting our duties if we don't thank our moderator, Sri JVR Murthy, for managing this flow of events very seamlessly and very efficiently, Mr. Murthy. Thank you also so much for this. We certainly at NSE will look forward to take all these knowledge sessions series in the larger interest of the water management, because ultimately water is fundamental to life. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the entire relevant teams of NSE, led by my colleague, Madam Rema Mohan, and also the colleagues from Tata Trust, who relentlessly and tirelessly work together to put this event together and make it a grand success. Thank you, everyone, and wish everyone success in life. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Recording
Bye,
stopped.
everyone. Yeah. Bye,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Sama. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Murthy, sir. Thanks, Sujit. Thanks, Professor Pradeep. Thanks, Ajit. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.